Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today I'm here with another Guardians Rising deck analysis for you guys. Should be one of the last IRL ones before we get back to the PTCGO deck analysis videos with Joe. This time we're going to be going over Yveltal-Drampa. Yveltal's been a deck that's been around for a long time. We finally have a new partner for him in Drampa. A really good attacker, very splashable, and really synergizes well with Yveltal. Just because we can Y-Cyclone the energy onto him and accelerate pretty quickly onto Drampa and start really dealing with some of these awkward Pokemon that Drampa can just one-shot a lot of the time. So yeah, really good card. Starting off, of course, though, with 2 Yveltal-EX. Obviously, this card has been around for a long time now, about 3 or 4 years. We all know what it does. Evil Ball, preventing our opponents from setting up a big attack or a big attacker and sweeping us. We actually end up sweeping them a lot of the time in this case. So having that kind of attack is really strong. It's pretty much what makes one of the big reasons that the card is good. The second reason, of course, is Y-Cyclone, letting you preserve your energy, move it onto the bench. So if your opponent's about to take a knockout, you're preserving some of that energy and keeping the steam going for later down the line, later knockouts. Obviously, this is really good for setting up Drampa as well, so that's really nice. Yveltal's still a really strong card, and it seems that Turbo Dark isn't quite as powerful in this new format, but Yveltal doesn't lose too much. So yeah, pairing that, of course, with 2 of the baby Yveltal as well. This guy is really good right now, simply because Oblivion Wing means that all of these disruption decks that try and run us out of energy, we have Oblivion Wing to stop them doing that, essentially. Dealing 30 as well means that we can start doing a little bit of damage, poking our opponents to try and set up knockouts later on. With Choice Band, that's 60, so 1 for 60, and ramping your energy is really good. Setting up more Yveltals, more Drampas, things like that. That's really nice. And just a real good non-EX attacker as well. But having an inbuilt answer to energy denial decks is really important, and Oblivion Wing serves that role very well. On to Drampa himself. Really cool new card, new GX from the set, from Guardians Rising. 180 HP, so pretty beastly, and he's got 3 pretty good attacks. His first attack, Righteous Edge, for 1 energy, does 20 damage, and lets us discard a special energy from our opponent's active Pokemon. So that's really good against anything that's running special energy. It means that we don't mind starting Drampa in that case, because we can just attach and start disrupting our opponents whilst we set up our things on the bench. So it means that sometimes Drampa isn't an awful starter. So having a good first attack is really nice. Plus it's an auto discard of a special energy, so it's no coin flip or anything like that as well. As long as we know the energy we're discarding has to be special, it's going to mean that we guarantee an energy disruption, which is a nice route the deck can take. Second attack for 3 energy does 80 damage, plus 70 if there's anything on the bench that has damage counters. So in the late game, this is really strong. 3 for 150 is a really nice number. With Choice Band, that pushes it into 180, which is knocking out a lot of GXs and EXs that aren't evolution based. So yeah, being able to do that is really strong. The damage isn't too hard to come by because we're going to be attacking with this late game, so our Yveltals are going to be damaged in the early game. We can then move them out with Altar of the Moon, which is the stadium of choice. We can then move them out to the bench and just start using Drampa as our attacker, dealing 150 for 3, which is really big. Drampa is also sort of one of our big outs to dealing with Garb. Rather than using all of these Max Elixirs and all of these trainers, meaning that Garb is stronger, we just have to get 3 energy on this guy, and Garb has to hit something else, so that we can just one-shot Garb, which is really strong. The fact that it's only 3 energy as well means that we can Elixir DCE, and whilst the Elixirs are going into the discard to fuel Garb's attack, it means that we can set this guy up in a turn, so that's also very strong. So having having an out to Garb, which seems to be a very good card coming from the new format, or the new set, is really nice. And just having an alternative attacker to Yveltal. Yveltal can be played around, your opponents can not stack a lot of energy on, things like that. So having another attacker that's also very good in himself is just really nice. That does good numbers as well. Should also mention his GX attack for 1 energy. Lets you shuffle and draw 10 cards, so it's essentially a one-sided N for 10. So that can be really good in a pinch, but a lot of the time, whilst N is in format, it may not be ideal to use it. That being said, in a pinch, we don't have access to the other GX attack that we're running in Lele, so in a pinch it is still good to use. It's not like it's completely unusable. So it's worth noting that we have it, because we can't use Lele's GX attack, so this is our only accessible GX attack in the deck. Next up we have a 2-2 line of Alolan Muk. Usually Yveltal would be paired with Garb, but now we have Field Blower. Garb can be countered. You can get a turn back of abilities, sorry. So having Muk means that in the key matchups where we want it, things like Volk, Aqua Box, Ray, Guardy, we're going to be able to find this guy, set him up, and stop our opponent setting up too well. Meaning that we are more favourable in those matchups, which is really strong. It means that Field Blower isn't sort of an issue for us. If we were playing the Garb, we would have to play Float Stones as well, and it would mean Field Blower isn't out for our opponent to getting a turn of abilities again and carrying on their setup as usual. So having this guy, we don't get him out in every matchup. It's mainly for those 4 that I mentioned, because he can become a Lysandre target. Since we're not running Float Stones, we only get them out in those matchups. But in those matchups, our opponents are kind of wasting their resources if they're Lysandering this guy as a stall tactic anyway. So it's not too big a deal, his retreat. That's why we're not running Float Stones, because only in the matchups that we only get Muk out in the matchups that we really need it. So that's the main thing. And yeah, the ability is just really strong right now, with Lele being released, plus Shaymin, Hooper, as we've said, Volk, Manaphy, things like that. This covers all of those bases, whilst not really affecting your board at all, because none of our abilities, like these are the only 3 abilities we have in the 2 Lele and the Shaymin, and we're going to be using those in the early game anyway. So we're not hindering our own sort of setup. So yeah, Alolan Muk is really good right now. He's also just another out to being able to win through sort of disruption style tactic, which is really nice. Finally, as mentioned, we do have the 2 Lele and 1 Shaymin. This is pretty much the split we've been running in a lot of decks right now. Being able to Lele in the early turns to find all of these supporters, to guarantee a supporter, is super strong. Means that we can play some of these sort of funkier one-off supporters as well to start setting up. But just in the late game, provided you don't have Muk out, just in the late game being able to guarantee a supporter is really nice. And Energy Drive, again, is accessible with DCE. A lot of the time it's going to be doing less damage than Yveltal, but it is accessible through DCE rather than Energy Dark Attachment plus Extra Attachment. So we do have the option just because we are running DCE anyway. But yeah, we all know how good Tapu Lele is right now. And similarly with Shaymin, we all know how good Shaymin is. Having 1 Shaymin I still think is a very good idea, just because sometimes that's the kind of support you need, that's the kind of search you need. You want to be able to just drop a guy and draw 4, 5, 6 cards if possible. So yeah, we're still running 1 Shaymin. Again, because we can Oblivion Wing our DCs onto Shaymin, it means that we can bounce him later on as well to prevent our opponents taking easy prizes, because the rest of the cards, other than I guess Alolan Muk, have big chunky HPs. So yeah, well, I guess Alolan Muk and Yveltal, but they're 1 prize attackers, so this is our only sort of cheap 2 prize Pokemon in the deck. So being able to Y-Cyclone a DC on and then bounce him away just makes our opponents' lives harder when dealing with or taking 6 prizes. Onto the supporters, we are of course running the full complement of 4 Sycamore and 3 N. Pretty standard. Both of these cards are still really good right now, and just having more copies is nice, especially with a lot of item lock around. Having more physical supporters rather than relying on VS Seekers and stuff is just super strong, especially as we have Tapu Lele as well. It means that we can search for one of our sort of one-off supporters early with Tapu Lele, and then we have a lot of draw outs later on to get into our other supporters to keep us sort of powering through the game. Similarly to Lysandre, pretty standard, just being able to take prizes. This deck can go aggressive. Obviously, Yveltal is one of the best aggressive Pokemon in the game, so being able to do so is really good. 1 Hex, again with Tapu Lele, 1 Hex just makes a lot of sense. It's going to mean that when we can't find our Muk pieces, we still have a lot of outs to stopping some of these ability-based decks from running over us. This is still an out against Volk as well, which is really nice, but just in general, being able to find Hex in the early turns is going to, 1, slow our opponents down, and 2, again, isn't really hindering our setup because none of our main attackers have abilities. It's just our sort of tech Pokemon. So if we're using our tech Pokemon to stop our opponent using their abilities, then it's not really hurting us at all. It's just going to be annoying our opponent, essentially, which is really, really good. We have one Olympia. Again, as I mentioned with the Muk, it's not too big of an issue that we're not running Floatstone, but sometimes our opponent will try and stall with Muk, or Lysandre up our Muk to stall a little bit, and just try and waste some of our resources. So having Olympia is really, really nice. It means that we have searchable switch as well for if we ever can't find our stadiums. A lot of our switching is based on Ultra of the Moon, so being able to have this reusable switch is really nice. That can also be searched through Tapu Lele. Olympia just gets a lot of value with Tapu Lele, as does one Fan Club as well. Turn 1 Tapu Lele into Fan Club is nice for getting out an attacker plus a Grimer, sorry. So that's really good. Plus it can also search Shaymin into the hand. So if you have a low hand size but don't have an Ultra Ball, you can search for a Pokemon plus a Shaymin and carry on going. So yeah, Fan Club makes a lot of sense. I think something like Bridget wouldn't work because a lot of the 3 abilities that we have are when you play them to the bench abilities. So a Bridget wouldn't work, but having one Fan Club is really, really nice. Just being able to search for our attacker plus either Muk either Grimer or maybe a Shaymin, something like that. It's a good combo to use. Moving on, of course, 4 VS Seeker, that's pretty standard, as is the 4 Ultra Ball. Nothing too much to say. Similarly with 4 Max Elixir as well. Obviously, this is quite a heavy trainer setup, but that's why I mentioned the Drampa as being a good attacker in the guard matchup, just because being able to set up a Drampa doesn't rely too much on the trainers. We just need to find DCE plus an energy, and that's not too difficult. As long as something else takes a hit first, Drampa can always one-shot Garbs as well. So yeah, Drampa's a very, very good attacker in the Garb matchup. 2 trainers male, again just cycling through the deck. Against decks that aren't Garb, we're going to ramp as fast as possible, finding the elixirs early, things like that, and get hitting hard with Drampa and Yveltal. So just being able to cycle a couple of extra cards is really, really good in doing so and having these aggressive starts. 3 Choice Band makes a lot of Yveltal's numbers nicer and just pushes the deck into one-shot range a lot earlier than Fury Belt did. Now that we have Field Blower in format, Fury Belt isn't anywhere near as impactful because a lot of the time it's just a plus 10 damage. The plus 40 HP isn't doing all that much. So just having an extra amount of damage is really, really nice. Pushing us into nicer numbers ranges, as I've said. It means that Yveltal does 120 with Y-Cyclone, which is good. It means that we're two-shotting some of these 240 HP Pokemon, which is nice. Plus it also, as I've said with Drampa, pushes Drampa into 180 damage range, which is one-shotting things as well. So that's really nice. Yeah, just a really, really good card. Finally, we are running 4 Ultra of the Moon. This is pretty much why Dark is still really, really good right now. Ultra of the Moon means that pretty much all of these, everything other than the Alolan Grimer and Alolan Muk have free retreat, provided they have a Dark Energy on them. And because we can move the Dark Energy around with Y-Cyclone, plus be able to just throw it on random things on the bench if we need to, for later on in the game with Yveltal, it's going to mean that pretty much our whole board is going to have free retreats at some point in the game. So it's going to mean Lysandre stall isn't really an option for our opponents. And just having that freedom of movement is nice. It's still going to be kind of a 2-shot format to an extent, I think. So being able to tank a hit and then move into a different attacker and not waste your energy is going to be super strong. So yeah, Ultra of the Moon is such a good card. Really, really good pickup for Dark decks, and I think Yveltal in particular. Finally, we are running, of course, 4 DCE, and then we're actually running 10 Dark rather than the usual 9, simply because this is Dark now acts as our sort of free retreat mechanic or retreat mechanic, so we want to have access to them. We don't want to be caught short and not being able to find them. It's also going to make our elixirs even more live, meaning that we're going to hit them a lot more often and be able to start going aggressive as well, and that kind of thing. It's just really, really strong for being able to do stuff like that. So yeah, I don't mind at all having more energy. We're also looking at a format that seems to have a lot of energy disruption as well. So just all of these things make that 10th dark energy over 9 dark energy even more favourable. It just does a lot for the deck. So yeah, it's a really, really nice list. Super simple. There's nothing like crazy about it. There's no super text. It's just doing what Yveltal has always done, being a good, consistent attacker, efficient, and then having a partner in Drampa to be able to deal with some of these other awkward matchups and just sort of sweep the game in the late game. Being able to do 3 for 180 with a choice band, it's just nuts numbers. So yeah, really, really strong. A lot of options with the deck. Yveltal's always had a lot of, or seen a heavy amount of play. So I think the deck naturally fits into the format quite well. And as we've said on a couple of our videos lately, it seems that Turbo Dark may not be in the best place right now. So for now, this could be the Dark build to watch out for and see how it goes. You could be seeing this guy on the top tables, I feel. Yveltal's, like I've said, always been good. So it's nice that he's got a new partner and we could see a new lease of life in Yveltal. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. As I've said, hopefully we will be back on PTCGO in the near future. There's a couple more. I think this should be one of the last IRL deck analysis videos we have before Joe takes us back to PTCGO and has some battles with some of these decks. So yeah, make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Lots of videos coming your way. Stream every week on a Wednesday. We will start posting that a little bit more. But yeah, now we have new cards. We're going to be playing with some new decks. It's going to be a lot of fun. We often have guests on as well. So make sure you check out our Twitch. Like, comment and subscribe, all of that good stuff. Get in the discussion below if there's anything that you would change about the list. And other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke, and I look forward to seeing you guys in another video.